Hello and welcome to Chapter 11. Just before we get started, you may hear some extra background noise. I currently have some people working on the stairs in the front of my house, so you'll hear their power tools going in the background while I'm recording this video. Hopefully it's not too distracting, but I need to make these videos so that I have them ready for you to study prior to coming to class. So here we are, we're pushing forward, and my stairs are getting fixed. So chapter 11 is the end of our part of the class about acid-base chemistry, and specifically we'll be looking at acid-base titrations. And this is really the whole reason we have been studying acid-base chemistry, is to apply it to this analytical technique. That's a very, very commonly used technique. We've already talked about titrations in general when we looked at precipitation titrations and sort of the general properties of titrations, and now we're going to apply that to probably the most common type of titration, which is acid-base titration. So you've had the chance to do acid-base titrations both in general chemistry and in this class. And what we're going to be looking at in this chapter is a lot of titration curves, which give us a good understanding of what's happening in terms of the chemistry going on in our solution and why we see physical changes, why we can use indicators to find the endpoints of titrations and things like that. And so in general, for acid-base titrations, the y-axis of our titration curve is going to be pH, and the x-axis is still, of course, going to be volume of titrant. And we're going to have, just like we always have, a burette and filled with our titrant and our analyte that we're measuring in here. Now, one thing to know about acid-base titrations is our titrant will always be a strong acid or base. So you can do it with either one. If you're titrating, if your analyte is an acid, you'll want to titrate using a base. If your analyte is a base, you'll want to use a strong acid. And our analyte could also be a strong acid or base. Most commonly, it'll be a weak acid or base. And we could also, of course, have a polyprotic weak acid or base. And we'll be looking at titration curves of these three different situations, where our titrant is a strong acid or base, and our analyte is also strong acid or base. So these do show up. We'll be looking also, right, so we can count these out as 1, 2, and 3 as our possible analytes. So 2 being a monoprotic weak acid or base. And our polyprotic case will just kind of be an extension of that. So this is what we're going to be covering in this chapter, is looking at titration curves and how we can understand what's happening in terms of the chemistry for these different types of titrations. We'll also look at a specific application of acid-base titrations that's really commonly used, especially in the food industry, known as a Kjeldahl analysis. And some of the things you need to think about in terms of we'll look at some more general, have a more general discussion about analytical chemistry and the importance of checking things with regards to Kjeldahl analysis. So that's an introduction to chapter 11, and in the next video we'll jump into looking at strong acid, strong base, titrating a strong acid or strong base.